Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihiyeh b'dvarei. Okay, good morning to everybody. B'siyata d'shmaya, we jump back into Likutei Moharan. As Hashem, our learning should be as chus for the continued protection of Klal Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael and the unfolding of Nisim and Neflayos that we're witnessing. It should just continue and continue and continue until Abiyas Geulah, until we're all back in Yerushalayim where we belong in Eretz Yisrael. And we continue here on page Lamed Aleph with what we had ended off last week learning from Rebbe Nachman, who expanded on, particularly on Yud Aleph, that was a commentary on Nachamu Ami, Yomar Lekechem, where in the context of everything that we've been learning about Makif and Pnim, the ultimate nechama is when a person realizes that everything is from Hashem, everything is part of the master plan. Tov Hashem lakol, kol mada aved rachman l'tava ved. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is taking care of the world. Everything is exactly. I saw a quote from one of the, what's his name, Derry, Aryeh Derry. What is he at MK? One of the Knesset members. He said it's unequivocal that October 7th saved the Jewish people. He said that there's bepem male. Like, I couldn't believe this, line that he says. While there are still hostages, while how much death and destruction and suffering, and he said it's simple. He said October 7th saved the Jewish nation from annihilation, because it set a chain of events into progress that nobody could have ever imagined. Now, like I keep on saying, imagine October 8th without knowing how things would unfold. You saw that sentence. It's like you couldn't imagine. There's no context. You can't imagine. And we see the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu unfolded things, and this is just over the last year and a half. Now imagine over 100 years, over 500 years, over 1,000 years, over 2,000 years, over 4,000, 5,000 years, all creation, how things are unfolding in unfathomable ways that one day, when it will be revealed. But by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he already sees it. And so Yoshev Shomayim Yitzchak, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in his aspect of Yoshev, where he already is Kiviyachol, without having to work toward a Yom Acharon, he's already Yitzchak, because he already sees the whole picture. And that's the ultimate nechama. Nachamu Ami. When Yomar Elekechem, right? We said Yomar is Chashai. That's the aspect of the quieting, the aspect of the moichin, like we learned. Right? That's the aspect. Just go back in for a second. Which is the shivas haneros, right? Because oil is quiet and wine is loud, right? These are references to Chochmah and Binah. And so Chochmah is that grand master plan. It's quiet, it's silent, it's smooth, it's delicate. And when does that happen? Yomar Elekechem. When Elekechem, which is our tza'aka, which is gevura, which is crying out to be moiled the moichin, so that that should give birth to the moichin, Yomar Elekechem, and then it settles down into Nachamu Ami, when we have these endless nechamas, makif and pnim, and it just comes in wave after wave after wave of comprehensive consciousness expansion. So then we learned about Chayim Nitzchim, that when a person really understands this, then they're living forever. There's no chiluk, like we said, between Chayim and Maves, and a person is always with Hashem. And the more that a person understands HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the more that a person perceives deeper and deeper layers of Hashgacha, the more they merge with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Iliyadate v'yisiv, the more that we know Him, the more that we are Him, Kiviyachol. And Rebbe Nachman carried on to tell us, this is Pshat. Again, he was just breaking down what we had already learned from the Rebbe of Az Yomer Bagayim Higdal Hashem Lasas Amela Higdal Hashem Lasas Imanu Hayinu Semechem. Right? Az Yimali Schayk Pino Shanein Arena. What will Am Yisrael's amusement be on account of? That we're going to laugh. That we're going to. And the answer is because Az Yomer Bagayim Higdal Hashem Lasas Imanu Higdal Hashem Lasas Amela. When they realize La'asad Lavai that the whole thing was only ever about Klal Yisrael, And everything that's clear to you and me today, which like we keep on saying would be mind-blowing, to the standard person on the street that wakes up to this reality and begins to see with clarity the nature of human history and how the whole story is unfolded, which is becoming easier and easier to see here at the end of time. It's almost indisputable to see, obviously, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with this people. It doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. It is completely and entirely beyond human comprehension what's been taking place, especially over the last 2-3 weeks. It's just not to be believed. And then again, in the context of the bigger picture, in the context of the much bigger picture, and it's just unbelievable. So to us, that hasaga, which to them is a huge makif, to us is like, no, we this is what we already knew. That's our pnim, right? But to them will be a great makif, and our makif will extend and extend and extend until it comes to a point, like Rebbe Nachman had told us, that was the last thing we learned last week, of Haaretz Deas Hashem Kamayim Liyamachasim, where it is certainly true that there's going to be a universal level of base God consciousness that everyone will have, and that's Kamayim Liyamachasim, that as the ocean is looked at on the surface, it's all the same, it's all equal. But then in the Ma'amakim, there are different layers. Okay, so let's jump in over there. So it's on page Lamed Aleph Amud Beis on the top, and we jump in with, at least in my printing, and we jump in with Kamuva Perish Hapasuk Umala Aretz Deas Hashem Kamayim Li'amachasim. The knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu will fill the world like water covers the ocean floor. Thank you so much, Yudah. Because in the Seichel HaMashutaf, in the collective consciousness, everyone, it will be all equal. There's going to be a universal boost or a universal vessel for God consciousness that's going to be the same by everybody. Even by the non-Jews, every single person in the world, close or distant as they may have appeared from the Torah and from God consciousness in that way. But in the nuanced understanding and grasp, that will remain just like it already is in our world, right? Of kol chad lefum man de b'shar belibe, as the Zohar Kaddish tells us on the pasuk noida b'sha'arim bala, and Rebbe Nachman quotes it in the very first teaching in Sichas Ran, that what does it simply mean, right? Noida b'sha'arim bala, that her husband is known in the gates, right? Where the important people sit and are. And that's a praise of the Eishes Chayil Noida b'sha'arim Bala. But the Zohar Kaddish learns Bala is a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? The Eishes Chayil is Klal Yisrael. Noida b'sha'arim Bala, says the Zohar Kaddish, sha'ar could mean a gate, but it could also mean lisha'er, right? Which means to grasp, to perceive. So, says the Zohar, Noida b'sha'arim Bala. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is only known to each person in accordance. It says the kol chad lefum ma d'misha'er belibe. Every person in accordance with the perception of godliness that they are uniquely capable of grasping, and every person has their own. And that's what Rebbe Nachman says over there very famously on the pasuk Ki ani yadati ki gadol Hashem. Says he says David HaMelech says, because I know that God is great. Only David HaMelech knows. Nobody else knows. He says everybody knows, but the way that David HaMelech knows is different, and all of us can say that. Ki ani yadati. Everybody has their own nuanced perception of Hashem, but there's a collective consciousness which is similar, which is the same. So the Rebbe says that's how it goes. Kamayim liyamachasim. On the surface is all equal. Ach ba'amkus, but in the depth, they're very different. In some places, the water is very shallow, because based on in the ground, not on the top, right? And in other places of it's deeper and deeper. And in other places, it's extraordinarily deep, all the way down. That's the way that's going to be for everyone. And that's pshat called tzaddik nichva mechupasu shachaverai. Each one will be burned, which is on a simple level jealous, right? They're looking on to the chuppah of their friends, which is the hasagos elikus, like we said, the chuppah, the arapanim, kedushin, right, shefa kodesh of their friends. When each tzaddik arrives at a new hasaga, when all of us grasp a brand new conception of emunah, of Hashem, of the depth of Hashem's goodness, this leads, like we learned in the beginning of the Torah, to chaim, right? Mental friction. Just like physically, right? It heats up when a person moves. The more that our mind is expanding and expanding, it leads to emotional passion. There's no other way, right? Shelo yadam mikaydem. So that light and that warmth and that clarity brings that person warmth, and that there's fire there. It's a wondrous thing that person grasped a brand new concept. But to a person already knows what this new, essentially, like in relative terms, a new Baal Tshuva on every level comes into a new hasaga. So the person who already knew that. To the other person, it changes their life. But to the other one, no. That person is on their level, they're grasping higher hasagos, deeper hasagos. So they're not likely to be inspired or to be activated in the same way by this person that for the first time is learning about Shabbos, the simplest thing, and is blowing their mind, and to somebody else is holding in deep Kabbalah, and they're beyond that. But both are true. So v'zeh kol tzaddik nichveh v'nivar b'neslav. That's what it means. Each tzaddik will be burned. It doesn't mean like they'll be burned like in a negative way. It means, what does fire do? Fire burns, but it's fire, right? They'll be activated. V'nivar b'neslav michupasei shel chaveroi me'hasaga she'etz chaveroi hu davar pasha. Because the question is, why aren't they nichveh from their own chuppah? And the answer is, their own chuppah is their own pnim. So that's what their hasaga is. It means that they will be nichveh from the chuppah of their friend. And each one will be nichveh from other one's chuppahs as you go higher and higher and higher. Because it's talking about the other person's hasaga. Why aren't they enlightened and inspired and illuminated by their own hasaga? Because that's already pnim. They already know it. So then where are they going to get their inspiration? From the chuppah shel chaveroi. And each one, it's not static. It'll go and go and go. Tzaddikim yelchu michayil el chayil. And each one's chuppah, which is their own pnim, will become the makif, which is the makif of the tzaddik that's on a lesser level, will transfer to their pnim, and they'll get the new makif, and so on and so forth. So that's his diuk, right? Why aren't they nichva from their own chuppah? What does it even mean to be burned up with the chuppah? So again, al pi pshat, it means jealousy. But the Rebbe is learning it much deeper. Nichva means fire. And the Rebbe had already told us that where do we get his slavos? From makifin. And the Rebbe then connected in the beginning of the Torah, chuppah to makif, kiddushin, right, to shef HaKodesh, and the whole inyan of yichud kutsurichu shchinte, which is exactly how makif becomes pnim, which is the aspect of the wedding, like we learned, underneath the chuppah. So now the Rebbe has a deeper understanding of the Gemara. So v'zeu kol tzaddik nichva v'nivar v'neslav. It means that they'll be inspired and enlightened and illuminated mechupasei shel chaveroi, from the chuppah of their friend. Ve'hasaga she'etz l'chaveroi davar pashut, which to his friend was something simple. She'enim mevaeres v'mechamem asosei klal, didn't warm him up, didn't enlighten him, didn't illuminate him. The Rebbe is so deep, so it goes at a level deeper. Because this hasaga is not likely to illuminate him, so the tzaddik was feeling warm. Memeli got himself a chuppah, to keep him warm. Right? He needs to cover himself. Because that hasaga is no longer enlightening him. But that tzaddik that's a level below, Gewalt, he's very warmed by the chuppah, by the hasaga of the tzaddik. That tzaddik was so cold in relation to this hasaga, he needed to get himself a chuppah. To cover. He's learning it as a cover to warm himself. But to the tzaddik below, no, he's nichveh mechupasei shel chaveroi. He doesn't need the chuppah. He's inspired and illuminated by the friend's position, and it goes higher and higher and higher and higher. So here Rebbe Nachman is just going to explain this a little bit more. We can understand this a little bit deeper based on what we had said earlier, right, which I just spoke out, but the Rebbe Nachman is just adding that bit, that if you go all the way back to the beginning of the Torah, why is the Rebbe now speaking about chaim and warmth? Because that's what we said in the beginning of the Torah. How do you get warmth? Mental friction. That's how we started the lesson. Which is the aspect of this shef aleki, this godly influence and effluence and this bounty and this shefa that Hashem is pouring forth. Hainu hasagos hamakifin, which is to be able to grasp the makifin, that higher form of wisdom. Hasagos hadas hakadosh, this holy das. We spent a lot of time discussing on Friday. Like the Rebbe told us, that brings fire into the heart. Nimtzad emerges. That the primary grasping of fire and flickering warmth of holiness within oneself comes as a result of the hasagos hamakif and hasagos hadas kenis Geulah. So now we could understand why we're making reference in the concept of a chuppah to nichve, to burning. Right, now we can understand that better. Kol tzaddik nichve mechupas shacharis dahainu she'etzel zeh tzaddik yenachshav l'hasaga gedolah. To one tzaddik, this will be perceived as an incredibly great hasaga. Ad sheyenichve mimena, so he'll be lit up and he'll be illuminated and he'll be inspired and inflamed and ready, to serve Hashem on the deepest level from that. Because we said that when a person rises to higher levels of perception, it awakens chaim in their heart. So this tzaddik will be burned, will be inspired and enlightened and inflamed by that. But the tzaddik who's on a higher level of perception, to him, this will not even be called a hasaga. That's simple to him. That tzaddik's not nichve from his own chuppah, right, from his own kedushin, so to speak, from his own sheva kodesh, because he's already integrated it pnim, and now he needs deeper hasagas. Now he needs to grasp something deeper. He needs a higher dosage. He needs to go to a higher place, so that he also should receive his inspiration and his warmth. So again, now we can understand that we learned that he's going to be burnt up from the makif of his friend, because each one's makif is greater than the other. Right? That what he perceives as a chuppah, as a makif to his friend, was mechaber, was already integrated pnim. Ki chuppah, like we said, ubechinas aras makifin kenis Geulah. The chuppah is the surrounding light. Kol zeu inin echad emasher kasav kan. That's exactly one that's written here. Ki a chuppah shu a makif ubechinas chipoy v'kisrei mamish emechamim es adam. It warms a person like a person's garments. Ki ikar chamimus v'eslavas ubechinas hasagos hamakifin kanal v'haven hetiv. And again, I hope I'm giving it over clearly enough. The Rebbe understands this Maimar Chazal based on everything that he had learned about what the chuppah represents and that how you produce chaim. So Mamela, you're able to understand this Maimar Chazal in a much, much deeper way than simply saying that it's just a metaphor for each tzaddik being jealous of the hasag of his friend, right? And it's like, why would they be jealous that this is Gan Eden? Like, why are they sitting in Gan Eden and being jealous? I think the Ramchal says something, seems to say that it's, I think he quotes this Maimar Chazal, Mesil SHIURIM, and says that in that sense, it's very painful for a person who could have gotten to a higher level and who didn't. And he quotes in that context, called tzaddik nichve mechupas shacharis. And the question is, like, how could it be that you're in Gan Eden, you're experiencing the Gehenna of not, like, is it Gan Eden or is it Gehenna? They're in Gan Eden. But the way that the Rebbe explains it, no, it's not. They're burnt out of jealousy. It's just a natural process that even though they're all in Gan Eden, because kamayim li'amachasim, on the surface it's equal consciousness, there are different layers of depth, but they will proceed. And each one is going to be nichve eventually from the chuppah of their friend, that what to their friend was pnim, will become this one's makif, will become pnim, and then to this one will get a new makif, and they will go on and on and on. Tzaddikim ein lahem menucha lo ba'olam hazeh, v'lo ba'olam haba she'nemar, Yelchu michayil el chayil. They will keep on going higher and higher. That's how the Rebbe interprets that Maimar Chazal. Okay, weiter. V'yachal liyos, and it's possible. Sheyu kama tzaddikim shekishiyavoy la'olam haba, that there will be many tzaddikim who come to olam haba and experience al hasagos shehisig atzadik hagadol mehem ba'olam hazeh. Their olam haba will be hasagos that another tzaddik already experienced while living in this world. That goes back to the concept that we've discussed now in a number of places of Geulah pratis, right? Of a person being able to get out of their, to live in olam hazeh, but to mamash live with the consciousness of olam haba. You can have tzaddikim who they're physically here, but the way that they're already living will be to the person who comes to the tish, whatever it is, who comes to the yechidus, will be that person's entire olam haba netzach is what this person already has in terms of their grasp of reality. It's an incredible thing. Incredible thing. What the tzaddik already knows will to this person be la'asid lavai, will be dvarim noiraim. It will be like mind blowing to when they get to that place. V'yikavu mehem, and they'll be burned up by them. They'll be inspired. And the eitz tzaddik hagadol hasagos shel hazeh. And that, so you can imagine this azim al hischayk binu, because like imagine a tzaddik that his olam hazeh is the olam haba of somebody else, and he's there in olam haba on his exalted level, looking at a person who has now what he had in olam hazeh, and to this person is literally his olam haba. That's a funny thing. It's a sad thing. It's a funny thing. It's like, you know, it is what it is, but that's what it could be. V'chein eitzal akum. So he's just putting it into perspective. That's the way that it's going to be in general for the nations of the world. Yezeh etzlam hasaga kedayla, and here he says a big chiddush. Not just when he comes to the level of the tzaddik, kishiyavayu al stam yados pashul shel ish Yisrael. Just the simplest kavanas we said yesterday. Was it yesterday in the Kezer Shem Tov Shir? No. Shal Shidis, the Piasetzim Shir, right? That everything comes back to the simple kavanas of the simple Jews, because it's the deepest, but it's the simplest. They will come to be aware of tzitzis and tefillin and sukkah. The Gemara tells us, right? They're going to have an opportunity to keep the mitzvah of sukkah. That will be their olam haba. That they will get Karban Pesach. They will get Yom Kippur, Ne'ilah. They will get to experience these things. The little bit of holiness that they experience, even without any great hasaga, what the simplest Jew in the world is doing, what's in their bones and in their DNA. When the non-Jew reaches this level of immersive faith, where it isn't just a little, avodah here, a little avodah there, but what it means to be a Yid, in the totality of what it means to be part of Hashem's people. It will be absolutely dramatic. Again, what our simple Jews' level of hasaga will be in that time will be le'ein erech, will be without measure. All the more so the hasag of the tzaddikim, that already in this world they perceive what to us will be our olam haba. So ayin le'ras aleim zilasecha, nobody could say, only the tzaddik. Ushleimus hadas kishenase makifim pnimim vaz nitzal mikal tzaris. Says the Heiliger Rebbe that the shleimus hadas, the ultimate completion of awareness, will be when we get to such a level when all the makifim become pnimim as nitzal mikal tzaris, and then we will be saved from every tsar and matzaik, like we learned. Lemashal, for example, when a person chas v'shalom is trying to kill someone else, he has to dress up, he has to disguise himself. Got to cover his face and send him out. He has to be disguised and hidden. Because when a person is hiding in other clothes and wearing a mask, so then you can be saved. Nobody will know who he is. Says Rebbe Nachman, says, which is the Rebbe, "V'chein be'ikar adam hu ba'aseichel," the primary essence of a person, which we learned, "B'machshavtei shel adam, sham hu ha'adam," right, where a person's mind is, that's where they are. So then, that's the essence of the person. So yesh v'chinas levushim, there are different garments that you can put on that inner face. Hainu seichel hamakiv, which is to disguise yourself, meaning how does a person change? How does a person grow? They put a new garment on. They put a new uniform. And the primary place to do that is our minds, because that's where the person is, right? B'machshavtei shel adam sham hu ha'adam. Says the Rebbe, sometimes you got to upgrade your clothing, but it's not clothing, physical clothing, because we're not our body. We're our seichel. How do you get new clothing? New makifin. Deeper and deeper hasagos. Chein be'ikra adam hu hayne ba'aseichel yesh bechinas levushim. Hayne ba'aseichel ha'makif. We need to get new makifin, which is new clothing. V'tzarech lasas me'amakif pnimi, and then to bring that makif down pnimi v'lasas le'makifin acher, and then to continue to go and to go in higher and higher makifin. Hayne bechinas malbushim acherim v'al yedei ze nitzol mikol ariv u'mastin. Then we can get free from any sour and sorrow. Any difficulty, how do you get free from that? The dinim are racing after us, right? The yetzer, the satan hamashchus is trying to sefer rasha l'tzadik u'mevakish la'amisay v'Hashem li'azvei b'yadeh, right? The rasha u'asatan u'amalach hamavis v'yetzer is trying to kill a person. Mamish. Says Rebbe Nachman, well, how would you run away from someone who's trying to kill you? In this world, you'd get new clothes. You'd put on a mustache. You'd disguise yourself. Says the Rebbe, okay, you have to run away from the yetzer. Where are you going to run? Into new clothes, into new makifin. And then the yetzer can't find you because you're not where you were. Because even though you might still be physically in the same location, if in your mind you escaped into new hasagos, he can't find you. He says this is what it means to run away from the yetzer. You go in to deeper makif, and you cover yourself. You hide. Very deep. Very, very deep. I'll just make a point. It's interesting, Mendy, because Mendy and I were speaking a while ago about bitachon, and about how some people think, that bitachon is just an escape. Right? People say, no, it's like Karl Marx, like said, religion is the opium of the masses. It's just like, it's so convenient. Okay, so you believe in this personal God who's takes care of you, and essentially we're all looking for a dad, So you make up this dad, and now you're protected, you're taken care of. It's such an easy thing. It's such a childish thing. Man up, take responsibility. Nobody's looking after you, and and that's like a challenge against bitach. And what the Rebbe is saying is, it is an escape. The Rebbe is saying it is an escape. It's not. You don't have to say, no, it's not an escape. It is an escape. And this is what I answer to you. It is a God-sanctioned escape. Of course it's opium. But God created the world and gave us opium that we should have what it takes to live in this world. You understand? The fact that it helps doesn't automatically mean that it's something that's wrong. It does help. Right? It's like a person needs surgery because they're going through something. You say, man up. Oh, yes, I'm getting surgery. I'd like to live. We'd like to live. You have to live with bitachon. There's no other way. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the ability. It's taka an escape. You escape into the higher makif. No, I believe ein oid milvada. And what I thought ein oid milvada meant last week, this week, and especially now, again, we're mamish witnessing it, current events. This week, ein oid milvada is on a higher level. Kipshutei mamish. Right? Ein oid milvada, yeah? It's deeper and deeper and higher, and so where did I go? I escaped into a higher hasaga, and the yetzer can't find me. So this is like a nice source which puts the two together. Rebbe Nachman says, you're escaping from the yetzer. And through this, a person is saved. Ki malbush, says the Rebbe, this word malbush is begematria chashmal. And this brings us back to Torah Yutes, where we learned about the 5 different components, the 3 shalosh klipas hatmeis legamre, and then we had the klipas noiga, and then we had chashmal. Chashmal is the ultimate kedusha. Says the Rebbe, Chashmal is malbush. That if a person wants a malbush, you got to go into Chashmal. That's the place where we hide. We hide in Einod Mavadai. We hide in the realization that there's deeper than the Klipas Noiga, and that the world that could be the mediation between Kedusha and Tumah, and certainly deeper than the world of Tumah. We go into that place. We believe Einod Mavadai. There are holy letters here, and those letters are communicating the Shefa Kodesh of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Chashmal. And they cannot access Chashmal. We said in Torah test, that's why Erev Shabbos, the klipas, the shalosh klipas atmeis legamri, right, of during the week are trying to rise up in hashmashis through klipas noiga to be able to be yoinik from Chashmal, right? Remember? And we said, what do we do then? We take a shower, and the hot water is flowing down the body, which is flowing down the seder shtalshalos and burning them and knocking them off. But Chashmal, they can't access. It's just the Klipas Noiga. Chashmal burns them. So the Rebbe says, okay, so we need a lot of Chashmal in our life. Where are you going to get Chashmal? Hasagos, Malbush, Chuppah, higher and higher Makifin in Seichel and Hasagas Elokus. That's the only place. Where do you find Hasagas Elokus? Pnimius HaTorah. There's no other place. Pnimius HaTorah and difficult life experiences, which is also Pnimius HaTorah, if a person lives them properly, because they force a person inward. Anything that forces a person inward is Pnimius HaTorah. Anything. Any technique, any practice, any mental health issue, any psychological breakdown, any process that forces a person in is Pnimius. And there you'll find new hasagos. And those new hasagos will be new malbushim. And the yetzer can't handle that because he won't be able to find you because you're gone. It's reminded me of the pasuk Rebbe Nachman quotes in Reish Pei Beis 282. Va'oid ma'at ve'in rasha v'izbaynanta al makoymai ve'inanu. You'll look back to find him where and he's gone. He's not in the same place. Because you gifted him a new hasaga as to his essential holiness. That's really what it means. Because you found a nekuda tova in him. Va'oid ma'at ve'in rasha. If you could find that little bit more to the person, ve'in rasha, where they're not a rasha, so then says the Rebbe, you changed his life. V'izbanantal makoyma, you'll look back to find him, ve'inenu, because you brought him from the kav chayva to the kav schus. That's a very well-known basic teaching of the Rebbe. But lefi, what we're learning here in Torah Chaf Aleph, we could suggest and be mechadesh that the mechanism for how that works is because you gave him a new hasaga. He got a new malbush from you. You introduced him to a brand new element of himself. Memela, the yetzer can't find him. He's gone. You know where he went? He went into the garment of the makif that you gave him of the nekuda tova. And this is the way that it works. Like Rebbe Edgar was saying, it isn't just in ourselves, it's in every circumstance, it's in everything, it's in nature. The nekuda tova is everywhere. Nekuda tova is a higher hasaga. Hashem has a nekuda tova. Right? Because sometimes it looks like Hashem is doing something bad. Hashem is doing something hurtful. October 7th destroyed our whole lives, our whole world. And then you come to a higher hasaga where we are availed more information. That's usually what it takes. We learn more. Time unfolds. We see how the timeline progresses. We see how the dominoes fall. And then you turn back and you say, oh, all of those unintelligible syllables were supposed to be spelled backward, and now it's a word. Okay, now I can see it. And that's the nekuda tova, which we find a deeper layer of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's kindness and goodness and sweetness. So malbush begematria chashmal umechashmal barchen kol hamashgichim. Hamashchisim rather. And mashgichim if they happen to be mashchisim. Okay. So the pasuk says eventually ois v'hada levush v'tischak liyayim acharei. Now we can understand because we've been saying this pasuk the whole time. V'tischak liyayim acharei. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is already laughing now. But we're going to get to that saga. Says the Rebbe. So okay, ma kesher to levushim though. What's the connection? Ois v'hada levusha v'tischak liyayim acharei. Now we can understand it very deeply. Because the levush is a chuppah, and the chuppah is the makif, and the makif is the hasaga, and the hasaga is choyim, and that's what warms a person. That's what saves a person. That's the nachamu ami, when yoymar elikechem, we access the yoymar, which is the oil of the shivas haneris, which is the hasagas hapadim, because of elikechem, because of tza'aka, that's moilid, right? Like we learned. Says the Rebbe, good. So oiz v'hadar levusha. When a person has accessed the hadar, which is a reference, because hadar is always like splendor, oiz is strength, right? So the oiz is the tza'aka, that gives a person the hadar, which is the oil, which is the light, levusha, and then we get a new malbush. So then matischak liyayim acharaim. Al yidei halavush, u'bechinas hachashmal, shu levush oiz v'hadar, levush chazak v'na'eh, it's both strong and it's glowing, and it's beautiful. So then we're already accessing the Yom Achron. We're already accessing the Bayom Hahu Yeh Hashem Echad U'Shmai Echad, even now. And if we're already connected to that hasaga, so then there is no yetzer. Because Hashem Hu Elohim, all Elokim, which is Bechinas Din, which is constriction and limitation and difficulty, is Yud Kei Vav Kei. And we're able to live with that layer of das. Says the Rebbe, the primary time for this hasaga is Chodesh Elul, which, Tammuz Av is already like hachana for Chodesh Elul. It's all part of one. We're being sucked into it now, and then it doesn't stop all the way, maybe to Chanukah and maybe past that. It drags you into this next cycle of time. Chodesh Elul, because levusha v'tischak liyayim achron is Rosh Hashanah Elul. Elul is the time for all of this, for the cleansing of our face, for the doing of tshuva, for the rising in hasagos, and it's so contrasting to what Elul at least used to be. Baruch Hashem, now we've already rectified it, but Elul used to be this horrible, scary, terrible, guilt-ridden time of Hashem coming to punish us, and by the Rebbe, Elul is exactly the opposite. Elul is the time to rise to deeper and deeper hasagos, to realize that everything Hashem does is for the good, including your own actions, that led you to places where we can recontextualize and have compassion for ourselves and rise to deeper and higher levels of understanding of Hashem and His goodness, of ourselves and our goodness, of circumstances and their goodness, right? To wake up to the realization that Ein Od Mavadeh, that's what Elul is for. This is the aspect of Shiva, which we learned previously in the Torah. So that the neshama of the mace should be able to rise to these higher levels, to higher chuppahs, to higher makifin and panimim, ayin le'el, like we said earlier. And that's why the avel is chayav kriya, because kuf reish ayin kara, to tear their clothing, is the gematria shin ayin. Shin ayin, which is called the Shat Nahirin, the 370 lights, shall ar hapanim, which exist in that very lofty place of the hasagos of the moichin, that illuminate in Kabbalah, which what's called the 370 lights. Shall ar hapanim shehim b'gematria, 2 times kel b'milua, if you spell out kel aleph lamed pei lamed mem dalid, so 2 times kel is gematria sha, and that's how you get the shin ayin nahirin. Ki kel hu ar hapanim, and the kel, that midah of chesed, that midah of Vayemahu Yashem Echad U'Shmai Echad, that everything was chesed, olam chesed yibana, the world is going to be built on chesed, and Hashem's kindness will unfold throughout history in the most remarkable way, that whatever, incredible, feel-good movie, that like at the end, it's just like there's triumph, and, and the underdog, like, this world is the greatest story ever told, and it's a story about the Jewish nation. And it's a story about awakening, and it's a story about the penny dropping. That la'asid lavai, and I really think we're really getting there. Like, I really feel we're mamish getting there. Now it's really real. The world is going to wake up, and it's going to just be the most remarkable thing. The most remarkable, obvious thing. That even to us, we need to strengthen our own emunah. But sometimes it's more obvious than others, but that story will reveal itself as having been a story that was told by the Master of Heaven and Earth. And it's a story that ends and they all lived happily ever after. Yeah, Obila Hamavas Lanetzach. We're all going to live happily ever after. Yeah?
Shalem as well. 370.
Shalem?
Yeah.
370. Yeah? Beautiful. So Kara and Shana Hayrin lead to a person to access the Ar HaPanim. Okay, so then remember that in the prelude to this Torah, we said that Rebbe Nachman gave this whole teaching as an answer to a question that was asked Lamala. Right? The Hikshu, it was asked in Shomayim, Ki yesh makifin eitzel aseichel, there are makifin that cannot be understood. That do not descend into the interiority of a person's brain. There are deeper hasagos that are not even they're not even expressed in the Torah as we have it. And they don't descend into the Torah. There are some makifim that they're like in front of our eyes. They're almost there actually. We can see them, but they haven't gone into our brain yet. And there are some that are completely hidden. Meaning they're further along the road, can't even see them. It's not that I can see them but I'm not there. It's beyond the horizon. I can't see them anymore. I'm sorry, I can't see them yet. And they're the aspect of pregnant. They're hidden within the womb. They haven't been born yet. So this was the question that was asked in Shomayim. How can we bring these makifin down into pnimiyim so that they can be accessed? And the makif, that's the immediate makif to the seichel that isn't beyond the horizon, which is a makif to the makif, but it's immediately makif that we should be able to bring that into our seichel, into our pnimi. First, the pnimiyim, because that's how it works, they're like sort of pushed down from above, right? So first, the makif to the makif should become pnim. And then those makifim will come into the Torah, and what we already are learning in the Torah, but we can't understand, because our own human limitation prevents us from being able to grasp that should also come inside. There should be a great process of revelation from the hidden realms to the revealed realms. Says Reb Nosson, this question was asked in the yeshiva Shalmala. This is a problem, right? Because that's what they're dealing with there all the time. Makifin and pnimim, that's all there is. And so they wanted to know, how can we help humanity speed this up? How can humanity, because this was what was asked in the yeshiva Shalmala, Nebuch, there are people in olam hazeh, right? And we need to give them das. We need to bring the world closer to a time of Bayaymahu Yashem Echad U'Shmai Echad. So how do we do that? Kach Shamati Mipiv HaKadosh Beferish, says Reb Nosson, I heard from Rebbe Nachman, this was the question that was asked. Va'achar kach zachinu l'shmei kol ha'Torah nizka le'el. Right, and then he revealed Torah Chof Aleph. So now, obviously, this teaching is the answer. Because the primary question is that's the question. How do we reveal greater levels of God consciousness from their hidden realm? And once they're born, once they are born, right, and the makif to the makif becomes pnim, klape that makif, but it's still not quite in our brain yet, we haven't integrated it. How do we do that? Now, after this week of learning Torah Chof Aleph, now we could understand this exactly clearly. Through the tza'aka, through the crying out in tefillah, and in limanat Torah, like we learned, to those who cry out and learn Torah loudly and with a geshmak and a bread and a fire, and certainly those who daven loudly. That is moilid makifin. That births in Shomayim. Again, it's not happening internally. That triggers that deep, deep, deep in the hidden recesses of the higher realms, there's new moichin that's born. And like Tetris, when the new moichin is born, it pushes down the next level. And then our makifin that were leneged einayim can come in. But how does that happen? How do we facilitate that process? So 2 steps. Number 1, right? That gives birth to the moichin in their higher, hidden, deeper realm. And through our own working on our perceptual purity, through the ears and the eyes and the nose and the mouth, the 7 openings of the face. Not to guard our eyes, like we had learned in all the associated elements. The nose is Shomayim, the ears is connection to Tzaddikim, right, etc. Then you can take the makifin that were born, which now makes it possible for us to take the makifin that are right leneged einav and to integrate them only if we're purifying the gates. If the gates are open, if the gates are clogged up. And by the way, if you think of it, that's why, incredible thing, all the openings of the face have a tsoya. There's waste products of all of them. There's earwax, right? The eyes can get crusty in the morning, right? The nose has inside of it, right? Phlegm, and the mouth also can have. What is that? A person needs to spit that out. A person needs to blow their nose. A person needs to use a Q-tip, and a person needs to wipe their eyes. Makesher. What's the side of that? Well, what's the side of that? The side is that all of these senses are capable of being blocked up. That's what that is. We can block up our ears and our eyes and our nose and our mouth depending on what we're putting in them and how we're putting what we put in them. That can block it up. Says the Rebbe, it's not going to be possible to perceive deeper and deeper hasagos all the while that our senses are blocked up. Just can't do it. To the extent that a person is working on cleaning out their ears and their eyes and their nose and their mouth, so then it's like, a person can't breathe if a person's nose is stuffed, and a person can't hear if their ears are stuffed, and a person can't see if their eyes are stuffed. We cannot see. But when we clear out all of these things, then you can breathe. I once heard from someone, and I hate to be, I don't know how to say this like cleanly, but like that there's a human fascination sometimes, I'm even Yochid for each Yochid, of the things that get clogged up. Like, that's what I said, sounds quite gross to talk about in a share, but like, people fascinated by, sometimes by like, I hate to say it, like, Q-tip, like, oh, that was interesting, like, I had this much, whatever, because we're completely stuck in, sometimes in the, don't know, I heard this from someone, it's just, you can be stuck in the wrong, you focus completely in the wrong place. Like interesting. The point is to clean out, not to fascinate in that. It's like Tetris and not moving on from the block. Just blow your nose and throw the tissue. Yeah, exactly. Don't need to check what was inside. It's like being stuck in the bottom thing of Tetris. The thing has to go. Unbelievable. Wow, thank you. Unbelievable. Sorry for saying that. No, mamish. There's nothing that's not holy. There's no. It's all side. It's all side. Ein oid movada, even in the tissue, Da'ainu lekadish is einav. Shalele stakav mashas lestakav v'chen lekadish piv v'chatma v'azav ayidei zeh zoichin lahachnes hamakif lefnem uber ha'inin urayosav ve'hechem rumez saidos nairois halalu, and where Rebbe Nachman got, where his proof, which is all in the Torah, and how he perceived these unbelievable saidos nairois. We're not just learning this Likutei Moharan, it's Soidos Nairais Fatsumais, where he found them Akal Mavur Le'el Bar Heitev. It's all here. Says that Rebbe Nachman, he ends Ashrei Sheyasem Liboy La'ayim B'Hem Be'emes. Fortunate is the one who places their heart, their focus La'ayim B'Hem Be'emes, to really, really focus on these teachings, Lilmaid Ulalamed, to learn them and to teach them. Which is important for everyone here, not just for me, to learn them and to teach them, and lishmar v'lasais ulekayim, and to actually do them. That's the ikr. It's not just to learn them, but to do them. Hadran alach, Torah Chaf Aleph, Hadra Chalan, Ashreinu Matov Chalkeinu. What a beautiful, important lesson, just packed, and a very long one. But Baruch Hashem, we got through it. The Siyata D'Shmaya, I will not be here tomorrow morning. I'm going to be in Manchester. So there's a one-day break. I encourage the chaver to come, and if you want to just review Torah Aleph together, a different chaver can read and whatever it is, so not to break it up. Be'ezras Hashem, I'm not quite sure how it'll work, but I think that it's an important thing to do. We're going to be taking Wednesday and Thursday, it could even be to the end of the week, to go through the stream of consciousness document. We're going to take a pause, go back to the beginning, and just do a huge, hopefully rapid review of everything from the beginning. We're probably not going to read through the entire document. We'll probably just pick 2 or 3 components and go through the whole entire thing. And that way, we'll come into Torah Chof Beis with the totality of everything that we've learned until now in the previous months. And Torah Chof Beis is an extraordinarily important teaching. I mean, they all are, but Torah Chof Beis, Chaisim is like, it's a whole universe, and it's a Rosh Hashanah lesson, and it's okay, we'll get there. Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. Okay, Yidin Yasher Krayach Ashreinu. Have a wonderful day, and good day today, tomorrow. We'll see you on Wednesday.
ואתה האב שלי שכל כך אוהב אותי, האב שלי מלך חי וקיים על כל נשימה שאני